Minot talk.
Dun, 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 dun.
Da, da, da.
We're back. It's 1 o'clock on a Tuesday.
The music is fire.
It's going off. I love
The
it.
commentary is even better.
It's going to be great today.
It must be Minot talk.
Here we are.
1 p.m. on Tuesdays, man.
It's live. It's good. It's time to go. It's been an eventful week. We've got a lot to talk about today.
I do want to say, just take a couple seconds here.
Please do before we get into it.
I know that there's a lot of wildfires going on and there's a lot of crazy things going on in the world. And so my deepest sympathies are with those that were affected in Arizona last night by a total bashing of the Minnesota Vikings.
This is a personal,
Go LA.
This is a personal attack on me. I feel slighted, and it was terrible. That's my hot take for today. It involves the Vikings, so there's a little preview of that. It was a terrible game. They fell apart when it mattered most, as they always do. It's iconic Vikings.
It was the perfect capstone to a very traditional Viking season.
It was. Fall apart when it matters most. It's iconic.
Yeah, I loved it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I missed the first half, and it didn't even matter.
No, yeah. At that point, if you missed the first half, the game was over. There was nothing worth following in the second half.
They scored a garbage time touchdown like midway through the third quarter, which the fact that that's garbage time is sad.
Yeah. And, maybe J.J. McCarthy will make this better.
He will. He better. I hope he does.
Whatever. I think Sam Darnold is good. You guys should appreciate what you have. Seems like that's something that Vikings struggle with.
We never appreciate it.
You never appreciate your quarterback. The only quarterback you've ever appreciated was Brett Favre in recent history.
Oh, okay. Dante Culpepper got his laurels for a couple years.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
20 years ago. That's recent.
Is that recent?
You're an old man.
No.
Get Gordy, you're saying why the countdown before your show starts is a waste of your viewers' time. We used to do a 10-minute countdown, and we realized that was a waste of everyone's time. And so we did a minute countdown just to give people the notification that, hey, we are live. And so it gave people a minute to jump on the podcast.
Plus, when we have a guest in studio, too, it kind of helps settle everyone down, get everyone prepared in the headspace, ready to go. It just acts as a kind of a nice little calming factor to transition into it. So if it does bug you, we apologize, but we think 1 minute is a fair compromise compared to what it used to be.
For sure. We got some interesting things to talk about today.
Yeah, we do.
Much more interesting than the Vikings game.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's debatable, but I think so. I think it's much more interesting.
Anything's got to be more interesting than that.
We're going to break down. I've put together a fun little list of all of the local legislators from here in Minot, and I've went and found some key legislation that some of them have sponsored. A couple haven't sponsored anything. That's fine, but
let's be clear. Kyler's put a ton of time into this, way to go, Boro.
It's fun. And so we're going to go over one key piece of legislation that every legislator from Minot has submitted, and then we'll kind of break down a couple bigger resolutions that are coming out in the House and Senate in the state, and then we'll see what time it is.
and then we'll get a third one.
But
also, somebody wanted to know about property tax because we bash property taxes quite often, and they wanted to know what our viewpoint was on it. And I said we'd have an update for that today, and so we'll have a short update for that to hold true to our word.
Exactly.
But on Thursday, I think we're going to actually
I have a big plan
deep
for Thursday.
dive into that.
For what my
property tax reform is on the way, and the Dakotans are going to be leading the forefront.
Our
Just kidding.
Proposal will be presented, or my proposal
Kyler's
will.
Proposal will
mine.
Yeah.
To be fair.
But
no.
I think overall my problem with property tax is I don't think it's completely fair that your taxes is based off the value of your home, whereas your services are not.
That's fair.
I think that simply comes down the reason why the current setup of property taxes in North Dakota is not fair.
I think the assessment process really needs to change.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one major thing that was lacking, and specifically Governor Armstrong's proposal. I'm sure in the plethora of proposals that are out there for it, someone has it addressed, but at least in the couple I've looked at, I haven't seen it. So I think that would be one big thing that would be assessed.
How is property tax assessed? All right. So we'll have more on that on Thursday. Today, though, lead the way, Kyler.
Yeah, let's start You want to start in District 3, going number order.
So what are we doing? We're going through all the Minot representatives and senators?
Every local senator and representative from Minot that typically they all sponsored some piece of legislation, a lot of them multiple, some like 8, 12 pieces of legislation. So I went and found one key one from everyone. Sometimes a couple instances they only submitted or proposed one piece, and everyone co-sponsored a plethora of options themselves, anywhere from like 6 to almost 30 different bills. So we're going to look at one key one that they all sponsored themselves, where they were the first legislator listed on it.
There's a few that didn't sponsor one.
There are, yeah.
Why is that?
Well,
did we find a common denominator with them?
So 4 of our local legislators did not submit anything. 3 of them are newly elected. So Macy Blinsky, Jose Castaneda, and Christina Wolf, who were all just elected this last fall, did not submit any, or did not primarily sponsor.
Right. We're not the primary sponsor. They could have been a co-sponsor. And so this brings, and I know I keep deflecting from what you're going to dive into,
because I want to talk about this too.
But this brings us to a huge problem with term limits.
Yeah,
we have a bunch of first-year legislators, which I'm glad that they're in there. There's no dock to them.
No, we need them.
We need them, but it is a learning process.
Yeah, I'm figuring this out, and I'm not even doing it. I'm just trying to learn along with the ND Legislator webpage. It's a mess.
Yeah.
Actually, it's very nice. They do a good job with it.
It's
but
trash.
It's to try to figure it out without
Just
without any like outside help is not fun.
Right. So whoever was the guy behind term limits, not sure you did a great job there, buddy.
Just a little restrictive.
Yeah. Maybe you should have went for the 12 years.
Yep. Or like
we've had that conversation many times, so we're not going to go
hammered that home.
Dive in.
But
all right, let's go.
District 3. So we'll start with Senator Bob Paulson. He had a couple different bills that he sponsored. The one I wanted to point out was Senate Bill 2180. So in short, it mandates that all public meetings in North Dakota include an opportunity for attendees to provide public comment with time limits as the only restriction. And it also strengthens public access and recording rights for in-person and electronic meetings. So if you're viewing an electronic meeting, whether it be a Zoom meeting between people, you're able to record it. If it's a public meeting, you're able to record any kind of public meeting, whether it be a city council meeting. That is all fully established in this, and it also sets so every public meeting in the state of North Dakota that is done by some board, legislative matter, whatever it may be, will have a moment for public comment.
And you're probably not going to know the answer to this question. You might.
I can try.
Does the Minot Public School, do they have a time for open comments at every meeting?
Don't believe they do, but I could be wrong.
Right. Off the top of my head, I want to say no, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't watch them as frequently. I've seen about 4 or 5 since I started here.
Right. And I know that there's times that they do, but
yes,
I thought that
I don't know if it's specifically in every single one, and that's a great point.
So that would, if that's the case, if that's not, that's something that would affect locally. Our city council, honestly, our meetings, there's the deal of how long they go. There's those things, but overall, the format that they've set up, pretty well, pretty good.
I think it's about as good as it can be.
I think it could be followed by other public meetings.
Yeah, I think the format and their style is as fitting as it can be.
There we go, Miranda Schuler with the answer. School districts don't have public comment.
There you go. So if Senator Paulson's bill were to go through, that would establish it.
It would.
So, moving on to representatives in District 3. First, we'll start with Jeff Hoverson, who has been very, very busy.
Wait. We ran through it, but we need a take on it. What's your thoughts on that, Paulson?
Oh, I maybe alluded to it, but never stated. I like it. I think it's good. I think it's good to establish all of these things. I think every meeting that's public should have public comment, and also anyone there should not have any issues recording it, so long as it's not an executive session.
Yeah. So this means that that I can show up and record it.
You could, yes.
Not as a media member, but as
Jonathan.
As Joe off the street, bro.
Anyone can go in there and
that's interesting.
Live stream and not have to worry about it. And that's a big plus for I think for sure anyways.
Yeah.
Any other takes on 2180?
No, I think that's good. And like Miranda Schuler says, if the school board does have public comment, it has to be on the topic announced.
Fair.
And I think that probably with this school, there are some people that may abuse it. This teacher did this to my kid, and they should be on the football team. And whatever it might turn into,
that
right?
certainly has a
But
possibility.
still,
I think it's the
I don't
principle.
know. I think it is the principle. And maybe you could go and say, if you are going to comment about specific things, then you will be shut out. Like, not specific things, but like things like I just mentioned, then we will.
Yeah.
Those are not able to be publicly commented on,
And
unless if it's specifically the topic that we're addressing.
and bare minimum too, they are able to implement time limits. So
Right. 3 minutes,
yeah,
you're done.
hopefully,
If it's
worst
gonna be.
case it'd be like
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Right. So, yeah, I think overall, I think it's a good thing. Most likely, there won't be a ton of things that pop up, and it just removes the power that citizens feel like they have, like their voice is not heard. Well, if you just show up, your voice can be heard.
Without a doubt. We're gonna move on to the next two.
Dan, so they take our tax dollars, but they don't want to be held accountable to the taxpayers. True, but also they are elected, so there is a level of accountability that we hold them to.
If we choose to elect the same people every year, and
Right,
no
that
one
is-
chooses to run against them, that is
We can't
partially-
forget about that, and that's part of the deal with like even term limits that's talked about is like we're upset about these people being there for 24 years, but then we have to remember we're the ones voting them in. So how upset can we be?
There's two sides to that coin, without
There
a doubt.
is.
But at the same point, on the surface, it does feel that way a lot, Deanne. I can't deny that.
No, yeah, agreed.
So if we're going to keep in District 3, we have two representatives there. I picked a couple controversial bills
Yeah,
from
this
both
guy,
of them.
he wanted to have a good conversation.
We've got to make it
This
topical,
guy.
right? It's got to be relevant. So you want to start with Hoverson or Van
Yeah,
Winkle?
Hoverson.
Hoverson first. Representative Jeff Hoverson introduced House Bill 1145, which mandates the display of the 10 Commandments in all classrooms of state educational institutions and public schools in North Dakota with specified size and format requirements. The bill allows public or donated funds to be used for implementation.
All right, Kyler.
You can start. I'll let you.
I gotta go first on this one.
Do you want me to?
Well, I think it being in every classroom might be a little overboard. I don't know that it needs to be in every classroom.
Fair.
I don't. Why? When did it first get put into classrooms? Do you know?
Like just recently when it became a new thing, or like are you
Originally.
saying, I couldn't tell you the original.
Yeah, me either. I should have looked it up.
Probably closer to the inception of the state and the education system, I would say, than
Right
later.
to
by
the
all means.
inception of the United States.
Yeah, exactly. No, without a doubt.
Which is interesting to me
That's fair.
because it's interesting to me because one of the arguments that you hear is there needs to be a separation of church and state, and I don't disagree with that. I agree with that. That's not an argument. That's something that it was laid out, and then people tried to apply that to this.
Sure.
Right. It's interesting though. I don't know when it was put into schools, but if it truly was around when the United States started, it's interesting that they felt like that wasn't violating it. If that's truly it, this might deal with it. I don't feel like having the 10 Commandments in the school is a violation of church separation of church and state. This is my reason. When the people that said we want a separation of church and state came from England, where there was a religion that was sponsored by the government, right? And there was a basis for a lot of the religions that they were talking about was still found in Christianity. It was just that there was different viewpoints that were held, and like you should have the ability to worship how you feel to worship,
For sure.
but there was still centered around that core
Yeah.
tenet.
Anglicanism was the state-sponsored religion, and if you didn't subscribe to being an Anglican, you were ostracized, and in many cases discriminated against heavily.
Yeah. So you come over here. They try to provide more liberties for that, which I think is extremely good. But when you go and you see the founding documents and stuff like that, I believe that there is a lot of love for God that is found in there. And so I think that having the commandments in the school does not violate the tenet of separation of church and state. It's not pushing a religion on you. It's pushing the Bible. That's all that it's pushing. And so if you're a believer in the Bible, great. If you're not, then so be it. They're good things. Nobody's going to disagree with what the 10 Commandments say, I don't think.
No, not at all. And I agree with your point in part.
Yeah, I know.
So-
I know there's a part you don't.
Do you have anything more?
Go ahead.
Okay,
And
so
then we can talk about it.
Yeah,
Because
we'll
there's
keep-
probably more I have to say, but
that's fair. We'll keep rolling here. So you say that you want them,
You need to just state what your viewpoint is.
I don't believe that.
First.
I don't believe that the government should be the one that mandates the 10 Commandments being in schools, specifically public schools. Private schools, obviously
They would not have any say there.
And
okay, so
I have no issue with the list of the 10 Commandments being in any classroom. I have the issue with the state saying that it has to be there.
Right, but can it be in the classroom right now?
I don't think there's anything that says it can't. If it does, I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a belief that it needs to be mandated. But it was removed. There was a time where it was like, get them out of the classrooms.
Sure.
And that, I do have a problem with that.
Yeah,
I have a huge problem with that.
I think that's the same thing. It's government overreach. You're forcing things to be in or out of classrooms. I don't think you should take any reading material out. There's some debatable things that should be included, but at the bare minimum, or the bare bones of it, I don't think the government should be saying what you can and cannot display in your classroom. If you're a teacher that's licensed in the state, you should be able to have that form of trust that you're able to present acceptable things in your classroom.
Yeah, I mostly agree with that. I still think that there may be times where the government needs to say that can't be in the classroom.
That's fair. There are instances in very specific cases where it's necessary.
Right.
We can, I don't know if we need to get into
those specifics.
But then I agree that there are, but I think
maybe we're closer than what we thought we were going to be.
I think we might be, but generally and broadly, I have no issues with any teacher hanging the 10 Commandments in their classroom. I have issue with the state saying that 10 Commandments need to be need to be hung in every classroom.
I do think, though, I like the idea where maybe we don't. I don't know. I think there needs to be less of the social stuff brought into the classrooms.
I think there needs to be a lot less of the social stuff brought to our state legislator this year. I thought we dealt with that 2 years ago.
Yeah,
probably. That's a whole. We're going to get into it with the next one too. So,
all right, here we
go.
go.
Takes on the 10 Commandments.
Let's go to the next one.
All right, we'll go to Lori Van Winkle, representative in District 3.
Just a minute. Theater and Stream, a film podcast. Sounds interesting. The Vikings hate is brutal.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know.
Brutal on your end.
It was brutal. It was brutal.
You're digging at an open wound, man. It's the most Vikings thing they could have done. They lost back-to-back weeks against the Lions and Rams in the regular season. Only at the end of the season.
Should they have even tried against the Lions?
They could have had the 1 seed and a 15-win team. That would have been like.
But then they might have won the next game.
They probably would have lost the next game. Whoever comes to Minnesota in week 2 probably would have blown them out. But
yeah.
Aside from that.
And then why no timestamps? We'll work on some timestamps for you, man.
Sorry,
that's a good thing.
I'm not invested enough into it, but you are very right. We should have those in our videos. I apologize. But
I keep going.
Lori Van Winkle?
Let's go.
All right. So she proposed quite a few pieces of legislation. This is just the one I picked. If you want to go look it up, this is a caveat to all of this. If you want to go look up any of your state legislators, whether it be whatever district you're in, you can go to the ND legislative site. It is the specific address for you, ndlegis.gov, and you can look up the state assembly. It's the 69th. You can go find your district, find your representative, and underneath them it has list of sponsored bills, and you can go look at every bill that they have sponsored and co-sponsored, so you can see everything that your local legislators have their hands on.
Beautiful.
So back to Lori Van Winkle. She has submitted House Bill 1373, which redefines the term human beings and person in North Dakota law to include unborn children from fertilization, extending criminal and civil protections to them. Exemptions are provided for medical procedures, life-saving treatments for the mother, and accidental or spontaneous miscarriages.
Okay.
And
why you throw this one in there?
I feel like in the state of North Dakota, it's not that necessarily out of the realm of anything that people have issues with.
Yeah.
There was one specific part in here that I wanted to point out. So I'm pulling up the bill here. And, gosh, where was it?
See, this is a hard topic.
This is such a divisive part of it here.
It's a divisive topic, but it's a hard topic. I think that first off, because, and I've said this before, when you talk about abortion, people immediately go to the outlier cases. And so immediately those are taken out of the argument in this because the exceptions are provided for them. So the person that was however many weeks pregnant and they were going to have to choose between baby and mom, there's an exception that's made for that, and that can be dealt with however it properly should be dealt with. based off the medical
side of it, which is a lot of kind of what this bill is trying to establish. So in its definition of unborn child, it says means an individual living human child before birth from the beginning of biological development of the moment of fertilization upon the fusion of the human spermatozoon and human ovum. So it is getting as scientific as it possibly can.
Yeah.
It is breaking it down to the lowest or the earliest possible part of it. And I don't have any general issue with it. The thing I have, again, is the government feeling it needs to define human being and unborn child. I feel like those...
I don't think that's overreach as much.
Probably, it's not as much, but I just feel like there needs to be a better solution. But at the same time, this might be that better solution.
Yeah, I don't...
I know it's a hot topic.
I don't know I don't know that you can say that that's overreach. Here's the deal.
Go for it.
Like think about this.
Please.
If at 8 months pregnant, if mom miscarries, and the reason is because there's drugs in her system.
Yep.
What happens?
I mean, mom gets in trouble.
She gets in trouble a little bit.
It's
not that big a deal. Or I mean, it's a big deal, but it's not
the end of the world.
If that baby is 1 month old and she doesn't feed it for a week, what happens?
Now she loses her child and she gets...
Well, no, it dies. The child dies.
Yeah, I guess. No, unfortunately, yeah. She goes to jail at this point for child in date. Does she not?
Most likely there's going to be. And I'm not so sure that there's as strong of punishment against them when they're... My point is, like, what's... Like, you're talking about 2 months different. 2 months different, that's all. And we have a very severe reaction, a very severe... different reaction. No, that's for sure. And so I think that's kind of weird.
And you're very much right. And I think there needs to be, this is such a tricky issue. It really is. I picked this because it is such a hot topic thing. And I know.
He was just looking for controversy today.
I was
literally really saying, should we have controversy today?
I asked you.
I'm like, I don't care. And then I go and I look at the notes. I'm like, oh, man.
Then he sees what I mean.
We are jumping into the fire today.
But
yeah, I mean, I don't see how that's government overreach, though. I think that some of this stuff does need a little bit of definition.
And it probably should. I just don't know to what point the government needs to step in. I guess in this case, is North Dakota's already prior established abortion laws not enough that they need to go and define this?
Right. I get that. But they're not even really defining that more. What they're saying is if you do it, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is a crazy, I shouldn't say crazy, that is a huge step in taking to say that you can punish someone, legally punish someone for an abortion.
Especially as early as conception.
Yeah, that's very early.
And typically, I think
I say that's very early because, like...
I think 6 weeks is normally the smallest number you see unless it's completely banned.
Right. But I say that's crazy because there's a lot of miscarriages that do happen and people have to be sensitive to that. And that's typically, probably more often than not the mom's fault.
Yeah, no, for sure. And they specify spontaneous miscarriages in here, and that's one thing where
but that is vague.
Yeah, it is. And it's such a small percentage of possibility, but it is a legitimate possibility where a miscarriage can happen. And how do you define it as spontaneous? Right. Can you guarantee that it was?
Right. Are they going to start doing CPS checks on people? Oh, you had a miscarriage. We're going to stop by your home to, you have alcohol. When's the last time you drank alcohol?
And what if it's 2-3 weeks in and they don't even know they're pregnant yet?
Yeah. Right. Yep. Right. There's, and I understand that part of it. The first time, and I was naive. The first time I heard about criminal punishment being brought to it was before, I think, the Republican convention when we interviewed Amber Vibeto,
sure,
who is with a nonprofit, and we talked about something that was going to be proposed there as a resolution, and it's interesting to see that resolution now come forward as a bill, because I don't know if that's the same, but it's drawing from some of the same principles. That one's a hard road to walk right there. And I've talked with legislators about it, and they've said the same thing because it's like, dude, this is to do criminal punishment is just, that's such a hard road.
So maybe defining human being and unborn child isn't as big of government overreach as I might have thought. But I think you're making a good point, or you're alluding to a good point, is that this could open the door for excessive government overreach.
I think that,
not saying it will or it even does. It's just saying it has the possibility to.
I think with how far back they're wanting it to go, there could be some overreach. And
at least ambiguity.
I feel like already, and this is a hot take, maybe I should say for that, I feel like already the CPS, they probably do a lot of great things, but also they're involved in stuff that they shouldn't be involved in.
For sure.
That's my viewpoint on that.
It might not. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think they're very much necessary and they do an incredibly important service. However, at the same time,
in the right way, but also
they can do some very unnecessary things and step out of line very far in instances where they have no reason to be. Right.
So I think, and maybe they wouldn't even be involved in this, but I think when the government starts being involved, like there's going to be some there'll probably be a few horror stories that come from it. I think it's just too early for that. Even if you said at 7 months, at 6 months, at even 5 months, 4 months, you went and you said it where it's like, all right, we all agree. Mm-hmm. You know, that might be a good first step, but to go and say at conception, basically every miscarriage has to be investigated, right?
At least you're leaving that open.
Yeah.
Like you're leaving it open for ambiguity because you're specifying what spontaneous miscarriages. And that's the only, and again, this is a hot topic one, but we're a half hour in and we're only one district through so far.
That's all right. Let's go D5.
D5, we'll start with the Senator, Mr. Randy Burkhardt.
Yes.
This was the only bill he sponsored. He co-sponsored a lot. He's a longtime legislator, is very experienced, but he only sponsored one bill, and it was Senate Bill 2169. It is, in short here, the physical therapist shall communicate the overall plan of care with and obtain informed consent from the patient or the patient's legally authorized representative.
This is an interesting one.
It is. It's very short.
I have no idea where this came from.
It feels... There has to be a specific case that brought this to him, and from some kind of physical therapist that encountered some kind of liability issue. That's my best thought on it, because it is the whole.
You're saying,
go ahead.
You're saying that it comes from the physical therapist side.
I feel like it did.
Interesting, because
I have no idea. It's speculation, but
and if we're reading it right, it's amending, right?
Yeah.
And so what it's adding is an obtain informed consent from
into the already established century code for
it currently reads the physical therapist shall communicate the overall plan of care with the patient or the patient's legally authorized representative. Now they're adding and obtain informed consent from.
Like that, and that is all they're adding, but it just means.
So you think that? I think that comes from the patient side.
It could be, but so here's my thought. So when the therapist is talking with the patient and they say, "Hey, this is what's wrong. We're going to start these practices, and here we go. We're going to start stretching you." Normally, it's not that fast of a process, of course, but I think it's.
Normally, it's like this is going to be 6 weeks. Come back on this date.
Twice a week exactly, and you're here every Monday and every Friday. But this. And I think it's just because of the legal schematics of our country are what they are. But I think
coffee is hot.
I think that a therapist just said to the client, "Hey, you're going to be here at this time. We're going to work on fixing your shoulder post-surgery." Then client starts working. They start doing an exercise and it goes wrong and the client hurts themselves. And they said, because I never officially confirmed and said, yes, this is what I want to do, I'm going to come after you for it.
You forced me to do this exercise.
You didn't tell me in depth enough of what we were going to do and how we were going to do it, so I should have known better. I think I don't like it, but
you don't think they already had a disclaimer that said they're good to go?
Odds are they should. They should have something that they sign when they come in.
Odds are they should. That was a total cop-out statement. Odds are they should. So actually, odds are completely in your favor.
Odds are they do have something in the office. However, and every place should have something in their office. But I don't know if there's anything that stipulates it's a requirement.
Yeah, I feel like it's a patient.
Do you?
Yeah, and this is why. This is the one we're going to disagree on.
Of all of them.
Physical therapist shall communicate the overall plan of care. Doesn't that sound just like a patient? I mean, I understand that's not what we're talking about, but doesn't that sound like a patient coming and be like, oh, I didn't realize we're going to be doing this for a year. Yeah. And so they're like, all right, if you're a physical therapist, you have to give an overall care plan. And then obtain informed consent from. Then they're like, well, yeah, and I understand where you come from. The doctor's like, they got mad at me because of whatever. But I feel like the patient, by showing up, has showed that they are consenting to what's going on.
Yeah, you would think.
By showing up and doing it. Like, how can you force physical therapy? Maybe there's certain, if they're doing some massages and stuff like that, like there could be some, and maybe it's even talking about stuff like that there needs to be more consent there.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. Nonetheless, that's a strange one. But it probably isn't bad, but it does feel like it's a little bit just unnecessary.
Like, why, where did this come? Yeah. I think it probably boils down for both of us is it probably covers someone from being sued on some side.
Most likely.
And take that as you will.
Yeah. Fisher was not a primary sponsor on any bill. He did co-sponsor 12.
Yes.
Lead the way with Laos, everybody.
So we did, since Representative Fisher wasn't a primary sponsor, we did two of Representative Scott Lauser's bills.
Was he busy?
He did. He had, if I'm not 100% sure, but if I remember right, he had the most sponsored bills of any Minot legislator.
This is one thing that I enjoy about him. He is very active. I like that part.
Incredibly so. So we'll start with the first one here. We'll save the... Well, okay, so House Bill 1165. It updates election practices in North Dakota. It includes stricter deadlines for candidate filings. It enhances ballot and absentee voting procedures and a ban on private election funding. It also repeals municipal voter registration, which is more in line with how the state's no registration across the board is in place. And that's the one I really like about it, is there are some municipalities where you're required, or at least it doesn't, it allows the ability for them to request your voter, not necessarily specifically voter registration, but you to pick a side effectively. And this now mandates that the state will continue to have no voter registration. One other one that I definitely did enjoy with it is a little bit of the enhanced ballot and absentee voting procedures. I am all for it. I believe everyone should have a vote, but it now mandates that it has to go through, I believe, the county auditor, and they have to hand mail out every ballot that is requested to absentees.
Mail it out.
Yes.
Yikes.
Yeah, so it probably takes a lot more time. In theory, it would discourage people from doing it maybe, but at the same time, it probably doesn't. But I think it at least streamlines the process to take a little bit of the ambiguity out of it and to shore it up a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean,
have any takes?
Some people feel like our voting process is terrible. I feel like overall we have pretty good, and that's a very vague take on this one because it's just fine-tuning a few things. Ban on private election funding. Anything private when it comes to elections probably is a good idea that there's a ban on it. The absentee voting procedures, you mentioned that. I think that's a good thing. Stricter deadlines for candidate filings. Do you have more information on that one?
Yeah, I can pull it up here. I know it has, so with write-in ballot, I know off the top of my head, with write-in nominations for people that want to be a write-in candidate, before you had to have your information submitted by within 4 days of the election. Now it's 21 days.
Oh, so that's looser.
Yeah.
No, you have to have it.
You have
earlier.
to have it. Yeah,
sorry, I thought you had a time
less,
frame.
Yeah, less time
Gotcha.
to get those in.
Yep.
And then let me pull up.
It also says that in the nominating petitions required final filing date, the county auditor or auditors in the case of multi-county districts also shall certify to the Secretary of State the name and mailing address of each individual filing a nominating petition according to this section. That's removed.
Yep. And was this the one that
Which I think is interesting.
Well, is this the one where no, it's not. Okay, there's a different one that I want to talk about later. This isn't that one.
But yeah, overall, probably a good thing. Just clean that up a little bit.
Shore some stuff up. Hopefully can instill a little bit more, oomph into some of the requirements that are there, and also allow for the freeness that North Dakota has in our voter registration protocols, or lack thereof.
Next, HB 1185. You know what it's time for?
What is it? A quick break?
A quick word from our sponsor.
Aha.
In the demanding world of oil and gas, precision, safety, and efficiency are non-negotiable. Unmanned Operator Drone Services revolutionizes how you monitor, inspect, and manage your operations. With cutting-edge technology and expert operators, we deliver real-time data, detailed reports, and actionable insights for our valuable clients. Why risk the safety of your team or waste precious time? Our drones access even the most challenging areas with ease, reducing downtime and enhancing safety across your sites. We take the guesswork out of your projects by offering LiDAR, mapping, and inspection services so that your projects stay safe, on budget, and on time. Unmanned Operator Drone Services, where technology meets safety, precision, and efficiency. Contact us today to elevate your operations.
We're back.
We're back.
Oh, thank you, Unmanned Operator. Really appreciate you, man.
I like that commercial.
You like drones.
I'll never forget the first time I actually watched the commercial. I was like, wow, that's pretty neat.
This guy, he's so supportive. I worked hard with that man.
You guys killed it, too. He did a great job.
He did it all.
Well,
Go
fair
Travis. All right,
So back to
HB
Scott
1185.
So this one relates a lot more to Minot. It has...
Oh, yeah.
This is the one where it was...
So Minot has... Minot City Council, they have this little forum that they have, I assume, annually or every year before legislative, biannually, where they talk with all the local legislators. And this council says these are some of the things that we think could be a huge benefit to our city. And so one of the things that came up is something that we talked about, and that was something where City Manager Harold Stewart said it's kind of difficult with some of these open records laws. And that was coming off of this police investigation where they had 75 days to complete this in-depth police investigation. Yeah. And the general consensus is that it was poorly done. And part of that is, we would agree with, is...
It wasn't enough.
Not enough time. Now, that has not been said by City Manager Harold Stewart that it was poorly done, but that is our take here at my seat.
And mine, if it hasn't been clear.
So, interestingly enough, Louser gets a bill together.
Yes.
Adjusting some of the language held. And if we're reading it correctly, it is a big time bill.
It is. It has a little of some legal schematics with its...
we should have a bill that simplifies the bills, man.
Right. So in short, it enhances privacy protections for public employees by exempting sensitive personal information in personnel records, and limiting disclosure of internal investigation records. It then prioritizes safety and confidentiality, specifically for Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, while balancing transparency with the already limits that have been in motion.
Yeah.
So if it does, that's take that as you will, but that's the rough, very quick
originally one of the spots where there's some major text change in our viewpoint is except as on point 2, page number 1 in section 1, except as otherwise specifically provided by law. This is how it read originally. Except as otherwise specifically provided by law, personal information regarding a public employee contained in an employee's personnel record or given to the state or political subdivision by the employee in the course of employment is exempt, including personal information. Defines what that personal information is. Now, that reads, except as otherwise specifically provided by law, information contained in an employee's personal record or given to the state or political subdivision by the employee in the course of employment is exempt. It's no longer personal information. It's just information in general. I feel like that could be a decent change. Mm-hmm. Now, to be fair, in this line, it does says an employee's personal record given to the state or a political subdivision by the employee in the course of employment. So probably still keeps a lot of things open.
And it leaves some room for active employees, too, to be exempt at that point.
But the deal is it changes from personal. It's almost like it changes it where you have to define the stuff that can be.
That is supposed to be allowed.
Public.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be public versus what's exempt. Before it allowed it basically said what was exempt, and now it almost changes it to what is.
Because to further that, there were originally 6 points to the bill. It took out a whole section. So section 3 originally said non-confidential information contained in a personnel record of an employee of a public entity as defined in subdivision is exempt. And now that whole section is taken out. It is
not because it's no longer exempt, but because it's no longer necessary, because now
the exemptions are no longer
about what is being private. The exemptions are what's being public.
Yeah. And so now it feels almost as if, and maybe this has been discussed or there's something about it that I haven't seen, it almost feels as if they need to better define what information is allowed to be public record.
Yeah, probably. So there's probably going to be some work done on that bill.
Fair chance as it goes through the committees and gets into the chambers for voting.
I will say this, though. One of the things that's pretty cool about that is to see the transfer of something from the municipal government to the state government, where city officials say, hey, we feel like maybe this should be looked at, and then our representatives actually go and do something about it. I think that's really neat.
That is fun.
And
we're seeing it live in action happening right here. So whether you agree with it or not, that's a different story. But
we've had that conversation. So look back to some of the other podcasts.
But just on the surface, I love to see this happening.
Yep, absolutely. That's a good thing. All right, D38
wraps up District 5. So now we're into the districts that had elections this last year. So we're in D38. We'll start with the Senate Majority Leader himself, David
the man.
And he had an interesting one. It is very specific, and it feels like it's not that much of a thing, but I have a couple takes on it. So in short, it's Senate Bill 2159, and it prohibits the State Energy Research Center at the University of North Dakota from conducting research or projects involving the exploration, storage, treatment, or disposal of high-level radioactive waste in North Dakota. The bill ensures the center focuses on energy innovation and environmental priorities without engaging in nuclear waste-related activities. And it's not a very long bill. It's only about a page and a half, but it exempts. I just have issues with it saying, if North Dakota wants to be a leader in energy innovation, we need to have that in every aspect of energy.
We should be involved in nuclear.
Why shouldn't we be? Why shouldn't we have a nuclear reactor on the banks of the Red River? It could power a third of the state. The state's electricity could be, and that's a different subject for a different day. But if we want to be at even a part of the forefront of that research and that expanding of the energy protocols, we've already seen the issues that we've had in wind and solar and things of that nature, and they have their complications and their issues. If we could find a way to better utilize nuclear and find a better way to do away or recycle the waste, we could be at the forefront of technological innovation. And instead, this feels like they're trying to stymie it.
Yeah, but this is targeted at University of North Dakota, right?
And it also includes any North Dakota, I believe, any North Dakota
university
program.
Program.
Yes, that is involved with the State Energy Research Center.
Yeah,
which is based out of the North Dakota. Yeah, and and since it's based there, they have branches around the state. I believe they have one in NDSU. Let me double check it real quick here.
Yeah, but how does it affect the NDSU one?
If it's because the center is based out of UND, and they have branches in different locations.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that would need defined, would it not?
It probably should.
Energy Research Center at the University of North Dakota.
That's fair. It feels a little specific and targeted. So maybe they were doing something they should have been. But
China.
Again, I just feel like this on the surface stymies potential growth for technological innovation at our universities. Not saying it does, and maybe it's better that we know we're not messing around with high-level nuclear radioactive waste at our universities. But
perhaps.
That's my little take on that one.
I don't know that I have one on that one. Sorry, man.
That's fine. I think that was his only main sponsored one, or he might have had one or two others, but that's the one I liked. Move to Representative Dan Ruby. He has introduced House Bill 1243, and in short, the bill allows insured individuals to retain ownership of their vehicle or transfer it to the insurer after a total loss determination, and prohibits insurers from charging the insured for the return of the vehicle in such cases. So if you wreck out your car and you have insurance, you don't have to give it to the insurance company afterwards if they total it out. You have the choice of keeping it. I assume you'd have to pay it off at that point, but there's not a requirement that it is. You have a choice now in it. So I applaud that one.
I've heard people that had a choice before.
I believe it depends on the insurance company or your specific policy.
But why are you for that?
I believe it opens up the choice for everyone now. It allows everyone to have.
For that?
I don't believe this is government overreach.
How is this not government overreach?
It's the government allowing everyone to have a say. It's the government not maybe it's a step, but it's the government saying to insurance companies, you can't dictate what the citizens do.
You can't say.
So here's the
so you're saying that an insurance company, because I have heard of people that have totaled their vehicle and have bought it.
Sure.
Out in North Dakota.
Sure. Okay. So maybe it's here's what the bill says. If an insurer determines an automobile with physical damage coverage incurred a total loss or constructive total loss, the insured may retain ownership of the automobile or allow the insurer to take ownership. And part 2, an insurer may not require an insured to pay out of the insurance payment or otherwise for the return of an automobile following a termination of total loss. So in my sense on that, how I read that, the second point specifically, if you have your car gets totaled out and the insurance company is not required, or it requires them not to force you to pay or otherwise for the return of the automobile following it, or to pay out your claim if it's a total loss.
So they're just talking about the deductible?
If I think that's what it is at that point. Is that what it sounds like to you?
I don't think this is as crazy as.
I don't think it's a big thing at all. No, this is
this
is a very minor.
Because I thought at first we were talking about whether or not you could buy the vehicle back.
No, this is just allowing it to either for the choice, and it's now no longer forcing or it's not mandating anything at this point. I believe it opens up possibilities, if I'm seeing that right.
Yeah, right. I don't understand this bill.
Fair enough. It's.
I'm just gonna be real. I need to look at this longer. I'm sure Miranda Schuler understands it. It's her alley.
That's fair. Yeah, right up in the insurance company there.
Moving on.
Christina Wolf, brand new representative, also was not a primary sponsor on any bill, but she did co-sponsor 8. So we'll move into District 40, who also had 2 brand new representatives. So we'll stick with. So Senator Jose Castaneda was not a primary sponsor. He co-sponsored 27 bills, and new Representative Macy Belinsky also did not primarily sponsor any bills, but she co-sponsored 12, which leaves us with incumbent Representative Matt Ruby, who did sponsor a couple bills. And one that I picked out was House Bill 1338, which requires the Department of Health and Human Services to determine the military status of individuals involved in child abuse or neglect allegations and notify the nearest military installations family advocacy program if the individual is military affiliated. So pretty much if there are any abuse cases going on and that offender is, or the alleged offender is in the military, it is now mandated that the military be informed of said alleged abuser's case, whatever it may be. I think that's a fair thing.
Yep.
I think that's something that
common sense.
Yeah, I think by all means. And that wraps up all of our state legislators.
That was a doozy, man.
I tried. I was debating if we would go through a section and like do a co-sponsor of everything too, which maybe we will later, but definitely not today.
So going back to the insurance one.
Yeah, please.
An insurer, so State Farm may not require Kyler to pay for the return of an automobile following a determination of total loss.
So I'm not required to pay for it to come back. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's the way I understand it. Then it has in the comma area out of the insurance payment or otherwise. So they can't deduct out of the insurance payment and say, oh, you didn't pay it. We just lowered the insurance payment. No, you can't do that either.
Fair.
The consumer does not pay for the return of an automobile following a determination of total loss. I think that's the biggest thing that's being enacted there. Because the first point, the insured may return ownership of the automobile or allow the insured to take ownership. Either way. And maybe
it wasn't clear before.
Yeah,
so now they're
but
just
it's happened both ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now it's
probably determined on how your insurance is set up. I don't think it should. I think the insurance should be like, no, we're going to take your car. Like if you want to use your insurance on this, then we want the car on this one.
Fair. No, that's I think you're right on that.
Whatever their contract says. Whatever should be followed. The government should stay out of it.
I agree.
Yeah, you better agree.
Of course. But also I think that, that's a different story for different.
So
day. Should we get into some House concurrent resolutions?
If you have like one or two that are like hot.
I do. I have one, real fast, HCR 3002, legalizes sports betting in the state of North Dakota, something that's been being more and more popularized around the country.
But you can do like DraftKings and stuff like that here, can't you?
Can you? Yes. Are you supposed to? I don't know.
Oh, really?
I don't do them. I'm not sure. I don't do the daily sports betting stuff. I know people that do. I don't know what goes on with that. I don't know what the regulations are and how it works or anything. But at this point,
That would be on DraftKings, though.
in theory.
Yeah, DraftKings is illegal in North Dakota,
Fair.
according to a random site on the
To the Google.
internet.
So this would formally legalize it and probably allow for other sports betting sites that are outside of casinos to take place as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. How do you feel about that? I don't think I'm a fan of it.
I don't like gambling. It's an issue, but also I don't like mandates against it. So
He's more of a libertarian. The more you know him, the more you realize
I
it.
don't know about that. So one other one I don't like, HCR 3003. This is one I'm very, I don't
The other one
necessarily,
you don't like?
I don't know if I don't like it. I shouldn't have said
Because
that.
that means that you don't
This-
like 3002.
Yeah, no, this is, yeah,
And you
I
kinda-
do like, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. I said
Yeah.
that wrong. The next one that I thought was interesting that I wanted to talk about is 3003, and it proposes increasing the threshold for approving constitutional amendments in North Dakota from just a
this is bad.
majority up to a 60% of votes cast, applying to both initiatives and legislative proposals.
This is the best part. If passed, the measure will be submitted to voters.
So that means if it gets submitted to voters, all it needs is a 50% majority to pass,
Yeah.
and then everything following it needs a 60%
Yeah,
majority to
right.
pass. That's
So, vote that down in the legislature. And if you don't, then I would hope that if something like keep it local would be totally against that.
you would think, right? They should be.
Because that would be absolutely doing the
Yeah,
opposite.
I understand why you want the 60% majority. I get the basis behind it, but I don't like that it's changing it from what it already is. I think what we have is a great system. It doesn't change the requirements of how to get it on the ballot, but it does change what is needed to get it passed once it's on the ballot.
Wasn't there somebody that was going for Bitcoin that the state should start buying crypto?
Yeah, that's HCR 3001. It encourages investing portions of state funds, which includes the legacy fund, into digital assets and precious metals to safeguard against inflation and help bolster the funds.
What do you think about that?
It's interesting. I don't know how that would work. I am not as knowledgeable on Bitcoin and
Yeah, but it's just
in
they
theory,
just
I'm
need
not
to
against.
download Robinhood and buy some Bitcoin.
I'm not
Obviously, they're not doing with that the safe fund, but it's gonna.
I'm not against it on the surface.
Invest the same
I don't know
way.
what it could lead to, and if it could lead to some hidden things that are able to pop up and people can skirt around some issues. I have no idea what those would be. I don't know.
Right. Well,
on the surface-
assuming this,
Go ahead.
that as far as how the investment of funds and all that is treated the same way as everything else in the legacy fund, there's no skirting around.
I'm all for it then.
You think the portfolio should be diversified to include
I have no issue.
stuff on the blockchain?
I have no issue with that. How about that? I have no
Honestly,
qualms with that.
I probably am weird and have no qualms with that either.
Fair.
I feel like I know that crypto is definitely something that's weird and different and not part of it. The North Dakota, though, is well invested in it.
Yeah. and
Because we keep saying, come to North Dakota, come to North
we have
Dakota, come to
mining
North Dakota.
facilities here, or at least a
Yeah.
couple, and it's an area for it.
I don't think it'd be the end of the world to throw some money into some crypto.
Without a doubt. No, I think it could work. I think it could. Then for the other HCRs,
What's your hot take?
want to just get into that because let's get into that. Well, we can push some of this off. My hot take, if we're gonna cycle all the way back to the beginning of our program when Jonathan decided to talk a little smack about the Vikings.
I mean, by the way, just so we're clear, I was rooting for the Packers.
that's disgusting.
Here's the
Anyway,
deal, though. We didn't have any expectations.
the Vikings didn't.
Oh yeah, you guys did.
They were projected to get 6.5 wins coming into the year.
No, I'm saying once you were 14-3,
yeah,
you guys had
100,
expectations going to the playoffs. I'm saying we didn't have any
That's-
expectations in the
okay,
playoffs.
Fair enough. That's reasonable. Yeah, the Vikings.
And there was a
Late
bad
in-
PI call that got missed.
That happened.
It happens way too often against the Packers. I'm kidding.
Packers also were
being
decimated by injuries, and
Yeah.
that didn't help them
That happens.
whatsoever.
That happens.
So my hot take,
Happens, Vikings.
it does. In order to cope with another disappointing and terrible letdown, I will go back on my former prediction that we had a few months ago of the Detroit Lions being the underdog favorite to come out, which also I'm proud of that. They got the first seed, and I called it they'd be the Super Bowl winner. But I'm rescinding that. I am now saying that the LA Rams will go on a magical miracle run, and for the now burned out city of Los Angeles, they will go and hoist the Lombardi Trophy again.
Don't make a pun there. There's a pun you can make, but don't make it.
I won't. And I am now predicting that the LA Rams will go on a miracle run and dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl because they beat the Vikings. So that means that the Vikings lost to the Super Bowl champion.
That would be incredible. I'm just having troubles comprehending it.
Hey, Sean McVay is a top 5 coach in the league, and Matt Stafford has had elite tendencies. He has won a Super Bowl before. He could have one more big run in him.
I saw a tweet. It was from the man Jay Gruden. He's like,
Jay, not John?
Yeah, Jay.
Okay.
He was like, this won't be talked about tonight. I hired both Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay. They're both on my staff.
This is true. Those old Washington teams.
Okay, but yeah, that Washington team had a stacked coaching. So it makes you wonder, like, did Jay Gruden get lucky, or did he actually know how to develop coaches, man? Because he had LaFleur, right?
Yeah, Mike McDaniel on the Broncos. I think Kyle Shanahan worked there at one point.
Kyle Shanahan with
he was
back when it was Redskins.
Yeah, he was the offensive coordinator for him. Then, of course, O'Connell and McVay and Zach Taylor, too, the Bengals head coach.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
man.
I mean, I think that's a whole different story. We can argue John Gruden being blackballed from the league, but I think his brother Jay has been so even worse.
Yeah.
I don't think Jay is, a top tier coordinator, but the fact that he's been out of the league for a half decade.
Well, the thing is if being around him helped produce that line of coaches, you want him in your staff because he's going to help.
At the very least, if he wasn't the mastermind behind it all, he put all the talent together and he coordinated
But
it.
here's the deal that can't be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
If it was, and like, I don't know if it's, I cannot think of the name of the coach, but there's a few coaches and Bear Bryant in college football, and you talk about the coaches that come under Bear. So only because he's great, do we talk about the coaches that were out of the Bear Bryant lineage? Or that's not fair. So a person could not be a great head coach but still develop great leaders under him?
I think that's possible. Yeah.
Is basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah, because you can look at the flip side of it. One of the best coaches in NFL history, Bill Belichick, has had some incredibly unsuccessful head coaches that have come after him from history.
Right.
They've been some of the best coordinators in the league. Whether
really good coordinators.
But when they get head coaching opportunities, more often than not, they haven't lived up to it.
McDaniels, not Mike.
Josh McDaniels. Matt Patricia.
That dude.
Brian Flores on the Vikings.
Gerard Mayo.
And yeah, at least indirectly. I mean, he was on his staff.
He was. But, his son is quite the defense coordinator. But that's what you just said. And great coordinators, poor head coaches.
He's just never got the chance yet. But he's still young.
Yep, he is.
That'll be interesting.
He's going to get it at North Carolina. That's what they're saying.
I believe that.
Belichick
will take it for a few years.
Does Jerry Jones still Belichick away?
No, I don't think so.
Does anybody still Belichick away in the NFL?
Not this year. I think he gives it at least a year.
Okay.
He doesn't like it.
Does Deion Sanders go to Dallas?
I could see that. I could see that happening.
I could see that happening, them trading, getting the number 1 pick, drafting Shedeur Sanders.
I could see it.
And keeping this horrendous thing going.
Then it's such a boom or bust thing, though. Like, if it works out, they could be winning. Deion Sanders could be one of the best coaches in the league winning Super Bowls. Or he's out in 2 years, and Shedeur Sanders is a bust.
It's trash. My hot take is Elon Musk is as bad as you think he is.
You don't think so?
He might be really bad.
But he's not.
But he's got a big heart. That's one. I don't know. He might be really bad. I'm not going to say that he's not. Okay? Because, I feel like there's something that could come out and be like, oh, terrible. But the dude gives way more than
he does
to things that matter, not to some dumb
most
philanthropic thing that is going to supposedly help something in 80 years from now. Yeah. He's doing he goes and he delays delivery of Cybertrucks to people that ordered them in California, so that way he could deploy them with Starlink and resources to the fires.
Okay, fair enough. That's awesome. And he does practical things like that. He was a big proponent in Western North Carolina when those hurricanes happened last fall.
Getting Starlink out, supporting that stuff. Like he does a lot of stuff that actually is good. Now, there might be, I understand, to every good thing, there's probably a bad thing. Maybe there's data he's collecting. Maybe there's perhaps some type of win that he's getting from it. As long as it's not nefarious to the point where it's like damaging to people, I think overall it's a pretty good thing he does out there.
I don't disagree with that point whatsoever. I just feel like
I get
being the richest person in the world, there's always more that could be done.
He's only rich off of your back.
Darn right.
Yeah, I get that. But so I don't disagree with that. Okay. But I think my point is he does a lot.
He does, and I won't disparage that. He does a lot. He does a good job.
More than what normally rich people do.
Yeah, 100%. And more, at the very least, more effectively and more pragmatically than most rich people do.
Yeah, you got like
Bill Gates donating to the Bill Gates Foundation.
Right. And so Bezos, and then he got a divorce, and
now
his ex-wife became very rich.
And now he's only the third richest man in the world.
Right. But his wife goes and annually gives away a bunch of money, and she's given away like billions of dollars, and it's great. Yeah, and there's 100%. There's organizations that are very thankful for her, but as far as an overall thing, it affects very few people in the world. Yeah. And I guess the LA fires affects, when you look at a worldwide scale or even a United States scale, it affects very few people. But I just think that some of those ways where it's actually helping people in need, way more effective.
I agree. I can't dispute that point. That's very fair point. So he does give. He does not only take.
Right. He does not only take. I agree that he takes. Although the way that he's rich is a lot different than how other people are rich.
For sure.
And some would say he's just rich on paper.
And he probably largely is, but does it matter?
No, it doesn't. But what I'm saying is he's not rich like Microsoft became rich selling a computer over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't have one specific product.
He became rich because he took government grant subsidies
and contracts. Yes.
And contracts and things like that.
You want to know why he's the richest man in the world? Go ask who's delivered a majority of the satellites to space over the last half decade.
Right. And stuff and things like that. It's interesting. His path is very much different than what typically,
like a Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos,
or the owner Louis Vuitton,
founder, or
stuff
the guy
like
that owns all the Mexican phone companies, all the Mextels and everything.
Yeah,
he's like the fifth richest guy in the world. Yeah,
right. Like there's McAfee that's up there too. And not McAfee.
I was gonna say John McAfee. What happened to him?
Yeah, I think I
and on that note,
I'm probably on the wrong. Probably said the wrong name on accident. I think Kyler's going to try to feed me to the wolves here. Just feel that way. Angel Dog 4, thank you for being with us today. We really enjoyed it. And any updates on Dunseith anytime soon? Hopefully something happens in the legislature.
Yeah, that's... how about this? I will scour the House and Senate bills to see if any of them include anything with it for Thursday.
Commerce. That's basically anything that would come out of the legislature would involve.
So commerce. I will do a deep dive and see if I can find anything for Thursday, because we have some other stuff to talk about Thursday too.
There we go. Sounds good. Property tax. Yeah, we're gonna go after. That's gonna be a main topic on Thursday. Is property tax. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good, folks.
Thursday, 8 a.m. ND Talk.
Be here. All right. Thank you guys for watching today. We've enjoyed it. We hope you've had a little bit of fun. Hopefully you learned a little bit about what's going on in Bismarck. If there's a particular bill that you're like, hey, we need to know more about this, let us know. We'll either talk about it here if we know what to talk about, or we will work to get one of the primary sponsors on or a co-sponsor on that would be able to provide more light to the situation. So do our due diligence just for you. Thank you for watching this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and make sure most of all that you have a great day. Thanks for watching.